Hello. This is my first webinar. It's going to be live. I did, of course, a lot of podcasts already, always on the topic of data, mostly in Netherlands, but data and AI in general. I'm going to talk today specifically about how to get a job in data engineering. I know there are a lot of people who want to switch into this field. There's people who are already in this field and they want to know how to get into a different company or what things they should learn. I also see a lot of questions about how to get more value out of your career in data engineering, but I think that's a completely different subject. So I'm going to make a whole webinar about that after this one. So for today, it's really about how to get a job. How are recruiters thinking? How are managers thinking? What's going on in the market? We did a lot of surveys and we will get into that, but also how to just make your CV, how to manage the whole process of actually applying to jobs. So we're going to get into that with a presentation. I'm going to start it right now. The data and AI, how to get a job in data. So I don't really know what kind of people are joining right now, but I'm going to assume it's people who have a problem finding a job in data. And that's what we're really going to be talking about today. I also want you to understand that it's not just about getting a good resume and thinking from your own perspective, but really thinking, what do companies want and what are their challenges? What can you solve for them? We did a survey among 100 data engineers and 38 managers, and I'm going to share some of the most interesting things we got from that. Hopefully you can take advantage of that. Also, I think I have some unpopular opinions. I'm going to get into that and what that means in a minute. And of course, probably the reason why you will watch this webinar is how to get a job in the data domain and what can you do specifically to get it. So first, a little bit about me. My name is Vincent Spruit. I've been in recruitment for over 15 years. I started my own company specifically in the data and AI domain 4 years ago. I help a lot of data engineers lately for freelance jobs as well as permanent jobs. I do coaching. I make a lot of content. So I really try to listen to the problems that they have and try to post content as much as possible about it. We do videos, we do podcasts every 2 weeks with either senior data engineers or people who work in the data field or managers that worked on certain projects. We really try to understand what moves them and what can we learn from them. The newsletter, we try to post a newsletter every 2 weeks, always about different subjects like the communities, how to better prepare for your job interview, how to make your CV better. So everything that we're going to be talking about, you can always find back also in the videos that we make and in the content we write. But today I'm going to try to sum it up in 1 hour of value. If after this meeting you think, wow, this was a lot of information, I'm going to need some help one-on-one. I do help data engineers with coaching one-on-one, and just drop me a message and I'll see what I can do for you. First, let's jump into the challenges of companies. And of course, everyone has a problem to find the right person, but I'm not really going to get into that because I assume that maybe you guys are juniors, or maybe you guys come from a different field like marketing, or maybe you come from a different country and you're now entering the Dutch market and you find that everyone needs somebody Dutch. I assume there are challenges in finding a job for you, and it's not that you're not the profile that most companies are looking for in Netherlands, which is a data engineer with over 5 years of experience with Azure, Databricks, Python, and speaking Dutch. But the challenges that the companies have themselves and why they need the data engineers is because their data doesn't integrate so well. So they have all these different sources, they have different clouds where all the data is stored, and they have a real big challenge of putting this together and let all the data speak the same language. And that's why they need data engineers to begin with. Another one is the quality of data. So a lot of data comes from people putting in the data themselves, the employees, and they don't really know why they do it that well. So sometimes they just put an asterisk or they put a number. Sometimes it's with a comma or a dot, or they put name and then they put first name, last name, and then they put maybe initials, or they write it wrong, they make errors. The data quality in a lot of companies is not the highest, and we're really trying to get the data literacy up in general in companies so that everyone understands we need to be handling the data with care. We need to maybe have great guidelines over the whole organization that make it that our quality of the data will go up. And this is, of course, goes hand in hand with the data literacy. We need people to understand that data quality is important, and that if we have good quality, we can use AI, we can use machine learning models, we can use data science, but also we can do much better analytics, because even the greatest models don't work if your data is shit, of course. So if you know what these problems are, you can think it from your perspective, and how can you solve this. This should also be in your work experience. It should be written down in the projects you did, or if you have no experience yet, maybe you worked in an academy, then you can just see the little projects you did and put them all in work experience. But we will get into this in a second, and I will go a little bit slower then. I'm gonna go quickly through the 4 most important questions we asked, or I think gave the most interesting insights. First, what data engineer skills are most important? What is most important for data professionals themselves? So the first question is more from a manager perspective. The second one from a data professional. I think everyone here, or everyone in general, wants to have a good salary, and it's really nice to know what is the rest earning. So we're going to get into that for a quick second. And you cannot escape it if you're applying in the Dutch market. How important is knowing the local language? I think if you're looking at job profiles, there's always requirements, job demands, and you see things like Azure, AWS, Google, Databricks, Python, Snowflake, dbt, you name it. But when we ask managers, what is for you the most important between problem solving, cloud knowledge, between coding, communication, knowing Dutch, then we found that problem solving was by far the most important for them. So I guess that most companies think that the skills can be learned, but if you don't have the problem solving skill, that's something that is a problem by itself. Second was coding. Third was communication. Basically in the top 3 skills for data engineers, we find that there are 2 soft skills. 4 was cloud knowledge. 5 was, it's not in here, was speaking Dutch. So most companies say Dutch is the least important, but on the other hand, you see that Dutch is like a knockout. So if you don't have Dutch, you're not gonna come in. Then I write down fuck coding, because if we don't know any coding yet, should we still learn it? There's AI coming. People have different opinions on it. And for example, I'm going to share a video here from the CEO of NVIDIA. He even went as far to say we should not teach our children coding anymore because AI will take over. We're not there yet. Right now, I feel like the better you are at coding, the easier it is to use AI and to check their coding. But let's look at the video for a second.
I want to say something, and it's going to sound completely opposite of what people feel. Over the course of the last 10 years, 15 years, almost everybody who sits on a stage like this would tell you it is vital that your children learn computer science. Everybody should learn how to program. And in fact, it's almost exactly the opposite. It is our job to create computing technology such that nobody has to program, and that the programming language is human. Everybody in the world is now a programmer. This is the miracle of artificial intelligence. The countries, the people that understand how to solve a domain problem in digital biology, or in education of young people, or in manufacturing, or in farming, those people who understand domain expertise now can utilize technology that is readily available to you. You now have a computer that will do what you tell it to do. It is vital that we upskill everyone, and the upskilling process, I believe, will be delightful, surprising.
There was this video, NVIDIA CEO says, don't teach your children how to code anymore because the AI will take over. Then we asked the same question in LinkedIn. We asked people what they think about it, and actually LinkedIn seems to disagree. We had 142 votes within the first day, which seems this is a popular topic. So for asking the question, what do data professionals think that is most important? We asked first the managers, and they said, we think that data engineers value most career growth and company culture. And the funny thing was that data professionals and data engineers actually said the exact opposite. So for them, the most important thing is good salary and flexibility. And I'm wondering what you guys think is most important. If you say salary, it doesn't mean that the others are not important. But what I found in my talks with data engineers is that it's really hard for them to see the difference between companies. Everyone's saying that they have a great company. Everyone is saying that they are super flexible, or that they invest in your development and that you will learn the best with them. But at the end of the day, it's really hard to compare from the outside after 1 or 2 conversations if that company is really, really like that. It's like being on a first date with somebody. you show your best self and you don't always show like the bad side, and you have to find that out when you are in the company. But then the managers probably wish they tell it like they wish it would be, but also maybe they hope that you will forgive the flaws once you get to know them a little bit better. So on to the next slide. How much does a data engineer earn? We found that data engineers make between, on average, 3,000 and 4,000, and usually within consultancy firms, it's more around 3,200. And with companies that do have their in-house data, we saw that it was actually higher, and it went up to an average of 4,000. So there's a big difference there, 800 euro. Then every 2 years, the salary grows, and I would say in the first year, maybe the first 2 years, every year you gain about 400 to 500 euro extra. So in-house companies would pay 4,800 for people with 2 years of experience, and consultancy firms would pay 3,800. So there's a big difference there. So consultancy firms are companies that will send you from their company to another company and work on different projects. So you can either do that for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or 1 day per week. It really depends. Then we're going to go to the last slide, and it's Dutch. And Dutch is actually very important. We found that it has been increasingly important over the last year. A lot of consultancy firms were able to still hire English speakers, and they don't right now. Our statistics said that about 39% of managers will consider hiring a non-Dutch, which leaves 61% of companies saying that you actually need to know Dutch. And then of these 39, I often see that if there's 2 candidates and they're the same quality, sometimes it's better to have a Dutch speaker because they integrate maybe better, or they are able to do extra work, that they will be able to read the documentation, talk to Dutch clients, these kind of things. So if you are a non-Dutch speaker, it's really key to start learning Dutch. If you are planning to stay here a longer period, maybe for the next 5 to 10 years, start learning Dutch, because this will set you apart from all the other people. Now we're going to jump into the unpopular opinions. And this is actually, I think, key for what you should do, because I see that a lot of people learn in university that they should make their CV a certain way, maybe not follow too much up with calling onto recruiters. But I found that there's actually a lot of things that are common sense that don't work. And I'm going to jump into that right now. First of all, the unpopular opinion question. I read a book from Peter Thiel. He's one of the co-founders of PayPal. And PayPal had major people in it like Elon Musk, but also the founder of LinkedIn. So the people who came from that company are really amazing and built amazing companies that we all rely on today. The one question he asked was, what important truth do very few people agree with you on? And he said this was the single best question for interviews that could get him the right candidates. He wanted candidates that, of course, were intelligent, could think, maybe were also not just smart, but creative and brave enough to share their opinions. And this is a question that's actually really hard to answer. Just think about it for yourself. I thought about it and I couldn't come up with an answer straight away. I also read a book from Shonda Rhimes the other week, and she had an unpopular opinion. She said, dreams are overrated. Everyone's dreaming, they want to get here and they want to get there, but then their whole life they're always dreaming and they're not actually getting there. All you can do is take the first step to get to where you want to be. And I think most of the time we don't really know where we want to be. For example, when I started this company, I thought I will do A, but now as I do it, I see that I'm creating more content, I'm doing more coaching, and it's actually the thing I love, but I didn't know that I liked it up front. So I guess if you're doing data engineering or you get into a certain career, just look at the next step. What is the next best step and focus on that. I'm going to continue. I'll leave Bill for what it is. Here are 5 of my unpopular opinions I have. So a motivation letter isn't important. I know a lot of people disagree with me on this. I'd say a motivation letter is only important if you have no experience, if you're new, because you can say things about yourself that you might not be able to put in a resume. But if you have experience, most recruiters and managers will really look at your CV and that will speak 10 times more volumes than your motivation letter. And I think many people spend a lot of time on it, where you should spend that time maybe on improving your CV, making it specific for the job you're applying to. Then a CV, you should really know where you're going. If you don't know the job you're applying to, it's like running somewhere and you don't know the location. You can run really fast, you can really run super good, but if you're not going to end up where you want to be, it doesn't help you at all. So make sure that you perhaps find a few job profiles, see what are the things that they're asking for, and make sure that these things in your resume. Everything that's not relevant for the job should be removed from your CV. This is also, I always get a lot of pushback on this one. So I see people saying, no, then I'm lying if I leave something out, or no, then I'm not representing myself the way I should be. But nobody gets selected on just your resume. You will always be able to say more about your life or what you've done in the conversation. The key thing that you want to be focusing on is that the manager has a problem to solve, and you need to be the source for that. If you only write about what you did but it's not relevant, that's going to distract them. It's like writing a cookbook and you have 50 vegan recipes and 50 meat recipes, and then you're going to give it to a vegan person. If the first 4 recipes are meat recipes, they're going to go through it and they'll say, hey, this is not a cookbook that's for me. They're not going to even read the rest. They just, by first glance, think, okay, this is not a book for me. So what you want to be doing, if you present that cookbook to a vegan, is remove all of the meat recipes. And it's the same thing with your resume. It doesn't always mean like you need to completely remove work experience, because sometimes it will create holes in it, and maybe that will create questions itself. But if you did a job, for example, you already did some job as a data scientist and 20% of your work was data engineering, write about the data engineering part in the beginning. Put those things up, and do the data scientist maybe less. Write more about the data engineering part. I guess I got into the other two as well. CV isn't about you, it's about the problem the reader wants to solve. And a CV doesn't get you the job, it only gets you at the table. So then let's jump into the thing we're actually here to discuss: how to actually get you the job and what can you do to improve your situation. What's relevant in your CV? So already you can see all of the information right here. Step 1, aim for one job. So sometimes I see that people are trying to say, well, I'm also a data analyst. I can also do software development. I can also do data science. I can do everything. But that's not what most companies are looking for. Unless you're applying to maybe smaller companies where you're wearing a lot of different hats, you're better off putting focus in your resume and focus on the actual thing that they're looking for. So the ideal things that you should have in your resume: Python, Databricks, Azure, and put that as much as you can into your resume. Put also, for example, keywords to every single job experience separately. If you don't have that much work experience, see if you can find projects you have been working on, put that in work experience. If you worked as a data analyst or in another field, see how you can leverage that work experience to make it relevant for the job you're applying to right now. For example, I saw in a class that I taught last week, there was a guy, he came out of marketing, he was now getting into data, and he said, well, I have all this 10 years of experience in marketing, that's just not relevant for the data engineer job right now. But then when we got to a discussion, we found out that he was actually using a lot of data already, and maybe even doing sort of data engineer task where you would connect data points, where you would improve the data flow. He just called it differently. And of course, he knew a lot about the marketing domain. So if you would be a data engineer now, trying to get into a data engineer job, and you could find a job where you work as a data engineer in a marketing domain, you have a big advantage. So check each individual part of your CV and see if that supports the job. If it's something like you work in a McDonald's serving hamburgers, does it actually help the data engineer job? That's something you should ask yourself. And if not, can it be removed? What requirements are missing from your CV? So if they're asking for experience with Azure and you don't have it, how can you maybe add it somehow? Can you do a training on it? Can you get maybe the Azure Foundation certificate? Just see how you can add these things to the resume and give the recruiter a reason to invite you to the conversation, to the job interview. Step 4, add more details to relevant descriptions. This one, for example, people who have a lot of experience over the years sometimes write as much about an experience 20 years ago as they do about the last one, or even more. So you really want to be writing the most information about the most relevant experience. That's usually the last 5 years. And if you did a job where you did multiple things, for example, you did data engineering as well as data analytics, as well as data science, really get into the data engineering part and write more about that. Then, as I said before, to every specific job project or to every job work experience, add tech and just line up all of the tech that you've been using there. Usually recruiters, they filter your CV and they look real quick, they just scan it. They're not going to take all the time in the world. They take maybe 1 minute and see if you are a good candidate. If you are a good candidate and they decide that unconsciously, then they will start reading more, and they only read the job where it says job and data engineer, if they're looking for data engineer, they will read that. If it says data analyst, they will probably not even read it, even though it can be relevant. So sometimes I see people write that they are a data analyst and then they did ETL and all these different things, but it was just the company that called it a data analyst. Make sure that you're consistent with the job titles, and each job should have tech, and it should have Python, it should have Azure, it should have Synapse, it should have AWS, whatever you used, put it there. Get creative. And a recruiter will do Control F, Control Find, and your CV should light up and become yellow. That's the way to impress them. Another thing that I notice is that people use different types of job names. So you can say one is called data engineer, another one is BI engineer, or BI developer, ETL developer, Python developer, or BI consultant, data scientist. It can all be the same thing, depending on what the tasks are that you are doing. But from a manager perspective, or from a recruiter perspective, they're only looking for one thing. So make sure that you use the same terminology that they are using and keep it consistent. Don't make it one time BI engineer, one time BI consultant, then data engineer. Just make everything data engineer. It's much easier for the reader to follow what you have been doing. So I'm gonna go to the next slide. I hope this already has maybe presented a little bit of ideas of how you should build up your resume. Also, we wrote a complete document, a newsletter on, it's in our LinkedIn, and you can just easily find it by following our newsletter. It's like a 6-page document on how to build your CV. It has examples. I also made a video in YouTube, and there you can find 10 minutes specifically on this topic. So if this one goes a little bit too quick, go there. What else should you know? So usually the biggest chance of you getting a job is through referrals. If you know somebody already in a company, you see a job online, you're gonna check your LinkedIn. Do I already know somebody here? And try to get your CV to the recruiter through that person. I think it will probably 5, maybe 10 times give you more chances. Also, I see that people apply to a job site and they just maybe do it massively and just to give everywhere the same resume, and they're not even really noticing if the job is important or fun or whatever. They just see data engineering and they apply and they think, okay, that's it. That will get you really low chances of getting replies. You think maybe you're spreading your chances and you have therefore more opportunities. But if you're going to shoot with hail, you're going to hit nothing. You really have to look at a job, maybe call the recruiter and notify that you're a great candidate. Ask him what he's looking for. So often I see that recruiters talk with a manager and they ask, so what do you look for? And they get a whole profile and then they post it online as quickly as possible. And then they speak to the manager again and they find out, actually, I forgot a very important thing. This should be maybe the most important thing, and they don't add it to the profile anymore. So it might be that you're applying to a job and completely personalize the resume, but you only do it based on what you read online, and then you miss out on so much information. Second thing, if you do speak with a recruiter, they already know you. So they say, well, the most important thing in this one is actually experience with Python. Then make Python come down in your CV everywhere, and also tell the recruiter, wow, that's great because I've been working with Python for X amount of time. I think I'm a great candidate for this job. Tell me your name, repeat. Then once your CV comes in, they will recognize your name, and that's already the second contact moment you have with them. I think a lot of people are not staying in contact. So if you apply to a job, you should always be in contact at least once every 2 weeks. In my experience, most recruiters decide who they will pick within the first maybe 2 days. If they have a good candidate within the first day, they will pick and start the process with them. If they haven't invited you within the first week or 2 weeks, for sure they have somebody else. Then what you want to be doing is get feedback. Maybe they'll say, and I always see the standard messages, we have a better candidate. It doesn't help you at all. So ask them, hey, I noticed that I didn't get selected, and which is of course okay. It's a little bit disappointing, but I do want to improve myself and I do want to learn because I think I was a great match for this role. Can you maybe tell me your honest opinion and what I could learn from this so that I can do better with the next one? At least you'll learn from it, but also they will remember that you actually did this. Let's say that there is an opening still. They will remember the people that actually were in contact with them throughout the phone calls. So always get feedback, stay in contact, and track your job applications. This is something also a lot of people don't do. We have an easy job application tracker that you can download for free. It's in Excel. It says company name, URL, name of manager or recruiter, the phone number, when did you apply, what was the salary. It's easier to see where did you get feedback, and if they come back to you, for example, and say, hey, I noticed you applied to our data engineer job, and you say, oh, which one? Like, because you have been applying to like 100, it's easy if you track it. Another thing you should know is that networking, I already said it in the beginning, the power of referrals, but networking is the best way to get a job. So you need to get maybe away from your computer and get to know people, maybe people from your old company, or go to events. Try to find which data events are good for you. I know there are for at least 2 big data events and it's also about AI in September and October. They're free. Thousands of people go there. We wrote another newsletter about it. You can easily sign up and just meet people. There's also weekly events. If you meet people there and you say what you're looking for, very specifically, I'm looking for a data engineer job in this kind of industry, they will remember. If you're telling them, hey, I'm looking for a job in general, they will never think of something. Then you need to be very specific on what you want. And then tell as many people as possible. To the questions, and if you have any questions about what you've seen so far, let me know. But I've also already prepared some questions that I get a lot. So, for example, this one, I don't have any relevant experience and I've never worked with a certain skill or tool like Azure. How can I be considered for the job? Great question, Vincent. So I'm gonna get into this right now. If you never worked with Azure, you can of course do look in YouTube courses, try to register for anything online and see if you can add that to your resume. You can get the foundation certificate, but also do personal projects. And I would always say, put personal projects in your resume in the work experience. Don't put it somewhere on the side. I know a lot of people are now using GitHub for tracking their projects. If you work in a certain company, you cannot always share the details, but GitHub is a great way to track your experiences, to write down what you've learned and to show it to other people. But don't believe that people will actually go to your GitHub link and check it out if they are searching for you as a potential candidate. They will do it when they already know you and they want to check out more of your stuff. It's also usually more technical people reading other technical people's thing and not so much managers and recruiters. What you can do is maybe get the summaries or the highlights, like a problem and the solution, into your resume, because that's what people will read. They will usually not click on external links. So to get considered for the job, try to find what is relevant in your past experience and already start leveraging that. Even if it was just 10% of data engineering, talk about that in your resume. It's really your job to get into that job interview. And once you're there, they always have assessments. They can check your level of data knowledge and make sure that you never get selected on a resume. So try to get into the job interview. That's your goal. How do I leverage my old experience in another field? I think I got into this a little bit already before, and I'm not going to go into it right now. This third question is very interesting. I am a software developer, or I'm a data analyst or a data scientist now, and I want to move into the data engineering. How do I do this? Good question. I know actually a lot of companies who will really see the value. I think as a software development, especially if you work with Python, it's very easy to make the transition to data engineer, probably with a 2-3 month course. If companies are looking for people and they're having trouble finding it, they're able to invest in this. There's also a lot of academies that can guide you. I spoke with a really famous ex-data engineer. He's now has an academy. His name is Andreas Kretz. We will launch a podcast with him, I think in the next 2 weeks. So he also has an academy where you can sign up. Not that expensive. You will learn practical ways of using it. So really check those out and start learning, because I think going from data scientist or from software development to data engineering is not that hard. You can already start doing it, and within 2-3 months, you'll probably have the basics down. So if you want to get that job, look at the experiences that you had there. So if you worked in data analytics, what were already relevant things that you've learned that you can leverage for the data engineer job? A lot of data engineer jobs require you to talk to the business. As a data analyst, that's something you do. That you need to understand the data. As a data engineer, you also need to understand the data. Maybe you even did build a pipeline here, or you create a dashboard with Power BI, which is sometimes also the task of a data engineer. It really depends on companies of what they're asking. So write down the things that are relevant for the job you're applying to in that data analytics job or in the software development job. I get to the interview, but never pass to the last round and never get an offer. What can I do? This is a question I get a lot. And for me to understand why you don't pass, we really need to get into the specifics. But assuming you do good in the first interview, it's probably then not a technical interview. I would say it's, first of all about preparation, knowing what to expect and prepare this. You can prepare a job interview amazingly. If it's going to be an assessment and they're going to ask for your technical knowledge and you're not passing that, then it might be that you sell yourself too high, right? If you're applying to a senior data engineer role and you only have like 1 year of experience, of course you're gonna miss the buck there. Another time I heard a data engineer say, well, I went into the last round, it was actually yesterday, but I didn't get selected in the last round because they favored somebody with a similar profile who did speak Dutch. Then in that case, I would say really call with the recruiter and see what else you could have done to improve, because sometimes they give this as a reason even though there's something else lying underneath. So if you don't get into the last round, it's really per case analyzing what happened here and learning from it. And we cannot turn back time and get you the job that you have been rejected for, but we can learn from it for the next one. How do I approach salary negotiations? So this is something, of course, once you finally get the job offers and you get into a position where you want to be, but then you get lowballed for a salary that is actually below market value. You can either accept it and say, okay, finally, after hundreds of applications, I got a job and I'm going to just prove myself there. But you can always open a conversation. And what I see is that a lot of people get really black and white about salary, find it a really tough subject to talk about, and then they oh, but I want more money, and they explode almost. But you can just go into the conversation and ask what would be the a good salary in this case, what's possible in the company, are there options to negotiate. You can ask these things, and then you can tell them maybe about your situation, what you expect to earn, maybe that you did some research and you saw that this was the average. You saw, for example, in this presentation, this was a good salary. We also did a presentation for freelancers specifically on what the rates are in the market, but you can also just see the jobs online. You see what kind of salaries they are putting there, and you can tell them, hey, so I was looking at jobs and what I saw is actually that the average salary is a little bit higher. I do like your company. I hope this will not be a thing that will make that what we will not sign each other or go get into the contract, but I just want to know what's possible. So don't make it very aggressive. Try to open the conversation up about it. And you should also, for yourself, consider what is the minimum that you need and what is the minimum that you're worth. And for example, if a certain company is more interesting for you, like you want to work in a company that saves the world, save the ocean, then perhaps you should lower your salary a little bit. It really depends, but it's good for yourself to think about this kind of things. What would be a good salary for you? What would make you happy? Always asking for the top salary is not necessary, and I think it will make that you will lose some jobs. So see what is fair, and also that you have room to grow. For example, you can always say, what do I need to do to get to this salary? I'm now earning 4,500, but I want to be earning 5,000. What would you expect from me that I can make 5,000 euro? That's a very good question. So then you can say, okay, so if I do this, you can get it even in writing, I will be able to get that. And that can be within 6 months or 12 months. There's always room for negotiating there. Then you come and be a little bit lenient about it, and you like a trial between each other, I would say. So far I have not seen any other questions. I do hope that this has maybe given you guys some insights. Of course, I understand that everyone has a unique situation. It's very personal. Maybe your situation doesn't apply to what examples I've given. If you're a student, for example, right now, and you're just starting with your first work experience and you find that nobody's inviting you because you don't speak Dutch or because you have no experience, then you have to see what have you been learning through your master or your bachelor or in internships that you can leverage. You don't always have to put it as an internship. You can just put it as, I did a data engineering job. I was working for 5 months as a data engineer. That can help. You can do maybe private projects. Maybe you want to play around a little bit with Azure for yourself, or whatever you can come up with. School projects, put it in work experience. Try to get everything there that's relevant for the company to read, and try to make it thicker. There's no way that anything you have done in your life does not help to get the next job. Okay, so I don't see any other questions. I'm going to leave it at this. If you feel like you need more personal information or tailor-made advice, just reach out to me. I help a lot of data engineers. I've spoken to hundreds of data engineers. I coach dozens. Most of them always rent me for 1 hour, then they get another hour later. And I'm trying to help them understand, where are you right now? What are the possibilities of where you can go? And how do we get from A to B? And it's really practical. Get into specific situations for you that are relevant for you. Thank you so much. And hopefully I see you guys in the future. Bye-bye.